Welcome to SmithWeekly Discussions, an occasional program for our members of SmithWeekly Research. Please note this program is a private discussion and everything contained herein is for entertainment and educational purposes only. With that, we hope you're in a comfortable position, along with your favorite beverage, to enjoy the discussion. We remind our audience to examine our show notes attached to each of our shows to better understand how our program functions. Before we get into our discussion, we want to say thanks for questions coming from our audience at SmithWeekly, including Steve B., Craig S., Jackie A., and Brent S. We have a new guest of a returning company with us today. Tim Gabruch is on the program. Tim is the president and CEO of IsoEnergy, an Athabasca Basin focused uranium exploration company with a focus on advancing the Hurricane uranium deposit, among other exploration projects, primarily on the east side, Athabasca. IsoEnergy is a uranium portfolio holding at SmithWeekly Research. The company is listed on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the symbol ISO and also on the US OTC markets under the symbol ISENF. Mr. Gabruch, welcome to the show.
Andrew, thanks very much for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, Tim, it's finally good to chat, and it's been great following ISO and also following you as well from back in the Denison days here. But let's kick it off here. I'd like to just, because you're new to the program, why don't you just throw your resume at us here for some of the audience who may not know you?
Sure. Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a kind of a nuclear guy. I've spent my entire career in the uranium mining or the nuclear industry in general, about 27 years. More than 20 of that was at Cameco, most of it in the marketing, corporate development side. The last 7 of which I was VP of marketing here in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan at Cameco's corporate office. Over the years, spent a lot of time selling uranium conversion, working with utilities throughout North America, Asia, Europe. Was down in our Minneapolis office for about 8 years when we formed that. Came back to Saskatchewan in 2007 and joined the corporate development group. And that's sort of at a time when Cameco, you probably recall, they were really growing at the time. The market was booming and they had a goal to double production. So we were scouring the planet for new opportunities, for new deposits, for projects. We were working very closely with a great group of geologists at Cameco. That was a time when Cameco invested in GoviEx and picked up Yeelirrie, Kintyre. We were doing things in the conversion side, on the enrichment side, just a lot of growth going on in the company. And then, like I said, spent the last 7 years there until 2017 as the VP marketing, then moved over to Denison, the VP commercial there for a couple of years as they were starting to take the Phoenix project, the Wheeler, project in general, but the Phoenix deposit forward with their ISR technology, which was really a great opportunity, a great experience. They really advanced that project over those couple of years. And I was also the chief commercial officer of Uranium Participation Corp up until earlier this year. And of course, a lot of excitement around that as that's been moved into the SPrott hands, the SPrott Uranium Trust. So yeah, just lots of uranium experience, lots of, mostly like I said, on the commercial side. And then just had a great opportunity earlier this year to join IsoEnergy. Changes going on here. Craig Perry, the old CEO, was leaving, was approached by Lee Currier, who's the chairman of ISO, of course, the CEO of Nexgen. And yeah, just a great opportunity to join ISO at what's really an exciting time for the company. And I also do a little bit of work for Nexgen on the marketing side as well.
Lots of experience here, pretty diverse, all in uranium and a number of companies. And I'm sure your network is good and has some real depth to it here. Before we get into ISO here, I'm sure you have to have an opinion on the status of this uranium market. Is there any points you'd like to make on the current events and what you see as really the final key drivers to push this cycle onward and upward?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I know you have a lot of guests on. It's probably nothing too new, I can say. I mean, for me, and like I said, I spent a lot of time in the market, and this 7 years as the VP of marketing at Cameco, we kind of handled the market outlook and strategic planning. And the more you look at it, it's for me, it's really all about the fundamentals. And so yeah, I know lots of investors look at the market and go, when's it going to change? why hasn't it changed already? And certainly there can be frustrations there, but at the end of it, the fundamentals and everything important is really pointing in the right direction. So when I look at it, I go, look, the supply has obviously come off in a big way over the last few years, whether it's certainly curtailment with COVID, but before that, it's amazing to me that it's more than 3 years already that McArthur River has been sitting idle, one of the world's largest, highest grade uranium mines, one of the great mines, and so there's been a lot of hurting in this market for companies like Cameco, but the bottom line is things are going to change at some point, and when you look at the fundamentals and you look at last year 120 million pounds of primary production feeding into 180 million pound demand in the market, you're eating up a lot of inventories, a lot of secondary supplies, and that can really only last so long. So strategically, there's also been over the last few years, even without the curtailment piece, you've looked at, guys like Rio Tinto with Ranger. Ranger's now offline. You've got, key mines like Orano's Cominac coming offline this year. It's that supply piece and the fact that, we've obviously been in a really tough market for 10 years. It's just inevitable in my mind. If I look at all the signs, and so the supply demand fundamentals look great, but at the same time you look at the changing narrative around climate change and how positive that is, which is really taking hold, I think, in a big way. It's happened before, but I really tend to think that this time it's really got some traction, and even things like the fact that uranium now is being seen as a positive ESG story, which a few years ago would have been unheard of. But now people are tying it to climate change and clean energy production, and so all those things. I look at that. And there's not one thing that I see out there that's a negative. They're all really positive pieces pointing towards a great future ahead. And when that happens, it's going to take more utilities coming in a bigger way to start really procuring and making up some of the buying that they haven't done over the last few years. I think if you look out 2025, you're probably still have about a third of their requirements left to purchase, and that's quite a big number for a short period of time, and it's probably closer to 2/3 uncovered on their needs, their uranium needs, if you go out only as far as 2030. So I think you just look at that and you go, okay, the uranium is there that they need to buy, and the supply piece has shrunk, and I think all the stars are aligning. It's just, like I said, it takes some patience, but it's just a matter of time.
Tim, you talk to some of these buyers and sellers. You have these relationships in place. Of course, you had involvement with UPC. Right now, SPrott has come out of the gate really strong here with some pretty good performance results in the first few weeks of ATM program and purchasing. Yeah. I mean, I know you can't speak for those folks, but obviously the thought is to make this significantly better and to really push and really see what's out there. What's your thoughts on these chain of events?
Yeah. I mean, I think actually, Andrew, I probably underestimated how obviously there was work behind the scenes to see if SPrott was going to take over UPC for a little while, and I always thought it was very positive. I didn't really maybe expect there to be this much excitement around it, but when I step back, I go, I can see why there is. I mean, the SPrott guys are well suited, obviously, to manage this fund. UPC, I mean, this is, I was only there a couple of years, so I'm not talking about myself, but I think UPC was really actually quite well managed. It was just, there was limitations on how much uranium you could buy until you had to be sitting at a certain premium to the net asset value, and you were kind of beholden to the market for that to happen. So, they would have liked to be buying more uranium, but conditions didn't really fit. Sprott's got a little more flexibility. They don't need quite the premiums to come in and buy in the market. So I think it's the consistency, right? Like they've gone out and done this $300 million ATM. They want to build the fund. They just want it to grow. There's a lot of reasons why they want it, to be bigger, and that's good for the market. There's no indication they want to ever sell uranium or anything like that. So it's really, once it's off the market, it's off the market. And I think it's that consistency because they've got the money. I don't think there's any hidden strategy there. And you've got sellers, you've got, trading companies, all these guys that hold positions in uranium, and they know that these guys are going to be out there and able to buy some of that uranium. And certainly, there's lots of spot uranium buying. Cameco is a big purchaser, all that good stuff. But lots of times the rest of the market doesn't know exactly when that demand is going to come. And I think the fact that SPrott's there and they're probably going to have fairly consistent demand in the market really, it's really an interesting piece. It's going to definitely allow for some price determination out there and give people confidence that when they have little bits of uranium to sell, that there's going to be a place to sell it to. So yeah, I think it's good for the market. I think those guys will do a great job. They've got a really great group of uranium specialists, at the WMC guys working for them. They know the market. So yeah, I think it's going to be really positive going forward.
Yeah, I thought this was going to be a slower roll, Tim, and it turns out to be that it appears that if they keep this up, and we'll see, we need some more time for this to settle in, but as we've indicated earlier this year, that this possibly can cut off some of the timeline here. And so that's a little bit disruptive from a allocation standpoint and for those looking to allocate capital here. And then also it's a bit of a disruption for those who have longer term plans that higher prices don't necessarily suit their needs at this time. Of course, later do suit their needs, but maybe in the short term don't. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag here, but we're glad to see it. I mean, we're positioned really well to see this move forward, should it move forward quicker than expected. We'll see what happens. It's going to be an exciting fourth quarter and also, Q1, Q2, 2022 as well. You talked a little bit about Cameco. You have experience there, obviously, in the past. What do you think about their current pipeline? We've certainly looked at this and have had some concerns about their pipeline with respect to M&A early in the cycle here. It looks like, their two core assets probably at best have 7-8 years left in them once they kick off again. By any measure, Tim, in the natural resource sector, this mine life is starting to tick down here, and good portions of this already have been depleted. What do you think is going through their mind here as far as, pipeline in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for those guys, but, at the end of the day, I mean, Cigar Lake, sure. I think Cigar, it's back running. It's only got, a certain period of time, maybe through the end of the decade. There is Cigar Lake Phase 2. Obviously, I think the general thought is that right now, maybe too expensive to develop. That said, I mean, I think there's also, if I'm them, I'm sure they're looking at, well, how are some of these other developers, looking to advance projects that maybe aren't, as big as Cigar Phase 2. You look to the Denisons, like, maybe there's an innovation piece going on where, maybe we can't do Cigar Phase 2 as a underground jet boring, but maybe there's other ways. Again, this is not any insight, but I just go, I'm sure they're looking at different ways to make those things work. McArthur River, I think McArthur does have, McArthur's a great mine. I know they've been doing a lot of work while it's been shut down to make sure that when they come back online, it's even more efficient. It's running, better than it did in the past. So I don't know what that means right now for their costs, but maybe they're able to bring those costs down. And I think it does have, there's significant resource reserves still there. So I think it does go out longer, certainly than Cigar. And then, they've got various projects where it's Millennium. They've got, you even look at projects like Yeelirrie in Australia. I mean, some of the stuff that they've bought over the years, these are decent, good projects, deposits, especially in a different price environment. So I think they do have, they do have options there. They do have a bullpen of projects that it's just a matter of, which one makes the most sense. Certainly is there innovation we can apply to bring down costs and make it more viable in today's market, and maybe the market they see out in the future. And then, do they have, some M&A interest out there? I mean, it's always possible, right? There's always talk in the industry about, which of the projects or companies out there is Cameco going to look to kind of set it up for the future. And I'm sure those discussions are going on. I know they go on all the time. It's just a matter of timing and, can you afford it and what's your outlook for the market, I guess.
It's an interesting set of circumstances. Obviously, there will be a point in time where these producers are going to be printing some good cash flows. Yeah. What do we do with those cash flows at that time? How do we capitalize our projects? When do we do that? It's certainly walking a tightrope, if you will, here to try to see this thing extend out and keep those mine lives up and develop the pipeline and so forth. So it's going to be interesting to see how these bigger producers get through this as we move here. You took over the leadership from Craig Perry back around, I think it was February of this year. Tell us why you took the job, who got you into the interest in IsoEnergy, who gave up your Denison position. So maybe just talk about that and what was the reasoning.
Well, I'd like to say it was, there's a long, very well thought out laundry list of why you do these things, but, it was just some real interest there. I had no desire or interest in leaving Denison. I was really enjoying working with Dave Cates and the team there, and certainly UPC there's a lot of fun stuff going on. So, yeah, I wasn't looking for a change. I know Lee Courier and certainly got to know him over the last few years, especially since after I left Cameco. We've kept in touch and we've talked a lot about as Nexgen takes their project forward, Arrow, maybe helping them out, given my background has been the market and that for decades here. So we kept in touch on that, but they haven't progressed that to the point where they really want to put a marketing team or anything in place, and so we never pursued anything for a little while, and then he came to me and just said, look, we've got this opportunity. Craig is moving on to other things he's got going on, and we need a new CEO. Would you be interested to come and run IsoEnergy? And I've been following ISO. I mean, I think in a lot of ways it's a very unique story in the uranium space, and certainly coming out of 2020 with their drill results, it became a company that was like a lot of other juniors looking for that life-changing deposit that they discovered, and then they found Hurricane, had some great results, and all of a sudden you're looking at a company that's still a small junior, but $2 to $250 million market cap, and it really opened the door to do some more fun things. And I thought, these opportunities, Andrew, don't come along every day. And I wouldn't say, like you said before, I wasn't looking for something, but it was hard to say, yeah, no, I'm going to pass on this and see if other opportunities come along or something. Like, I thought this is a great opportunity, and really it's unique in a lot of ways, but one of the other ways it's unique is it's backed by Nexgen, who still owns just over 50%. And so there's a ton of support there. So you're a junior mining company with a good deposit, good financial backing, and you've got someone like Nexgen that's really got your back, and it's a really unique and it's just a great opportunity.
Agreed, and that's one of the key factors that we looked at besides Craig, of course. But
no, they did a great job. I mean, they did such an amazing job taking this company forward.
Craig's a great guy, and one of the things for us was when we looked at this to add to our portfolio was the fact that a lot of this is carried, if you will, by Nexgen, and this is just a useful structure for what we've got set up here, and I think this will continue to serve pretty well as the company advances. Well, why don't you just go ahead and give us just a quick status update of operations at IsoEnergy here?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so like I said before, 2020 was an exciting year coming out of their summer program in like over a year ago now, or just right around a year ago. They had really some great results. We keep pointing to some of the best holes we had. One of the holes there, 7.5 meters at almost 40%, 3.5 meters at close to 70% uranium. So really, kind of life-changing stuff for a company like ISO. The team was really excited going into the winter to follow that up. And of course, we were in the midst of COVID, and there wasn't like a law or restrictions, saying you couldn't go and do the work up there. But the government came out in December of last year and said, look, if you can at all avoid going up and doing any work in northern Saskatchewan, please do it, because you may not know, but like in Saskatchewan, we were hit pretty hard by COVID, like a lot of places, but it was really in northern Saskatchewan and those communities up north, the communities that we work around, that were hit the hardest. And, of course, they're isolated. They don't have the resources to a lot of times deal with, if people are sick, there's not hospitals next door or anything like that. So we thought we really wanted to respect the government's wishes and even more so respect the communities that we work in. So we took the decision to not do a winter program. We knew, we thought things were going to get better, and we'll pick it up when we can. So we held back, and I know don't know if it was frustrating for investors, but certainly, probably a little disappointing, but I'm sure most people understood it. But now, we great team in place, and things obviously got a lot better over the spring and summer, and we're back up at site. We've got really an exciting summer program that we're really in the midst of right now. One change we made this year is the last 2 years, we're really focused only on the Rock East and Hurricane after they struck that deposit back in July of 2018. It's really been all about Hurricane and the Rock, and it's still by far our focus. We have a lot of work to do there, but we also, right now we're well supported, and we've got all these other great deposits. So we spent a little bit of time already on the Geiger deposit. We decided the Rock will be our focus, but let's sink a few holes at Geiger. It's one of the deposits or the properties that we've liked the best from the outset, and we've been off it for a couple of years. So we just finished up a 12-hole program there. We're just in the midst of getting, geochemical work done at SRC here in Saskatoon. So, we'll start to get some results back from that in the next few weeks. The team has just made the move back up to the Rock East. In fact, the guys are driving up this week, and we plan to be drilling at the Rock East starting this week. That's going to be about a 30-hole program, about 12,000 meters. We, right now we're looking at about 12 expansion holes. We're still, as we haven't put out a maiden resource yet. And it's not because we, want to drag it out or drag our feet on it. We just want to make sure that we know what we have. And we're still finding really great results around the edges of that Hurricane deposit. So we wanted to spend some time making sure that we did it right. And when we have the results, that we come up with the right number, right off the bat. So we'll do some expansion there. We'll do a little bit of infill, and then we're also going to do probably 14 holes of exploration up along the Rock East. There's really a 15-kilometer conductor trend, out to the east of Hurricane, and so we really want to do some exploration there as well. So that's the drill program. We're doing we did some ground geophysics on the Rock East earlier this summer, right before we did the Geiger drilling, and we'll do some airborne geophysics on our Collins Bay extension as well this summer, and that'll be the program, Andrew.
Yeah, Tim, that sounds great. I appreciate that. And I was going to ask about some of the other projects before coming back to Hurricane here, but is there any other plans, some of these other projects that you guys have? Obviously, these are, somewhat non-core at this moment, but maybe just talk about the plans for some of the other projects. Do you guys fully intend to keep all of these projects under your umbrella? Is there any potential for, JV monetization, earn-in, or is this going to remain under the umbrella?
That's a great question, and certainly there's work to be done there. But just I guess to step back, some of the stuff that has been done, the team before I came here obviously did a great job getting ISO to where it is today. One of the things they really did well after they were spun out of Nexgen in 2016, they had 5 properties, and they were spun out in 2016, which if you look back now, you can kind of see it as probably the absolute bottom of this whole, the uranium business coming out of Fukushima, right? Like, things have been kind of on the uptick for the last couple of years as supply demand has changed all that. But at the bottom of it, they formed ISO, but they had good backing, good resources, good access to capital. And so they went out and picked up a ton of great properties that, people had been working on and just kind of left behind because, the capital dried up. So, they put together this huge portfolio with a view that some of these are not projects we really probably want to spend a lot of time on, but others are going to as the market improves. And sure enough, the market has improved. We've done a couple of deals. You've probably seen we put 3 properties into a company called IsoEnergy that recently floated on the Australian Stock Exchange. So they've got those properties. We did an option agreement with Consolidated Uranium for the Mountain Lake project in Nunavut. That project come out. And so, we've now got 24 properties, over 240,000 hectares of land. And to your question, we're definitely looking at, what are our priorities? And we've certainly got a laundry list, A, B, C, and all the way down the line. And it's really, we really need to spend some time going, okay, which of these, do we want to try to hang on to, recognizing that we won't do some work on them for a little while, or are there other, things we want to do? Personally, I don't want to probably do a lot more spin outs where you help form, other companies that are out here and basically end up having, competitors in the region. And not that that's a big deal, but I think the better plan is something you mentioned. Do you do some JVs with some existing companies that you trust and you think do a great job? I think there's an opportunity to do some of that for sure. But yeah, we'll take that away. Like right now, we're focused on the Rockies. Geiger, definitely a priority. We're going to, like I said, do some geophysics on the Collins Bay extension. That's a piece that the guys are very excited about taking a look at. And we have a bit of a new team as well, right? So when Craig left, shortly after that, Steve Blower, our VP of Exploration, left, and Steve's a great guy. He had other opportunities, but since then, we've kind of brought the team back together, and our new VP of Exploration is a guy who's really doing lots of the work on the rock right from the get-go, Andy Carmichael. He's I've got to know him over a few months, and I've just, more and more impressed with him every time I talk to him. So we promoted him to VP Exploration. He's doing a great job so far, and will continue to. And we've also brought on a gentleman named Dave Thomas, who you might be familiar with. He's, a 40-year veteran of uranium exploration, knows the Athabasca Basin like nobody else, probably on the planet. And he worked at Cameco for years. I know him really well from when we did corporate development work, kind of around the globe looking for some of these new deposits. And he's come in as a technical advisor that's, going to bring enormous benefits to the team here, just giving them some background, access to his knowledge. And we'll use that to kind of figure out, exactly what is the strategy aside from, the core ones we want to work right now. What are the other ones in the portfolio that we want to work over the next 2-3 years?
A lot of competition in the Athabasca Basin area, and then also there's been a kind of an influx of more, really a handful of ASX listed juniors that have come in and picked up something somewhere in Athabasca, and so there seems to be more interest in some handful of Australian companies coming over to North America, picking up various projects and so forth as things start to point forward. Well, why don't we take a step back for a moment? And it's been a while since, Craig was on the show last, but talk about the current share structure as things stand today, Tim. Shares out here, major holders. Of course, we know Nexgen's a big holder, and also the current cash on hand and how you see the cash outlook here and potentially for the need to finance.
So today we're sitting just under 99 million shares outstanding. We've got, I think 4 million, right around 4 million warrants outstanding, just over 8 million options, and we've got just over 9 million in convertible debt, 9 million shares in convertible debt sitting there. So, fully out there, it's about 120 million shares. Yeah, I mean, as far as the ownership, as I mentioned before, obviously our biggest, most important shareholder is Nexgen. They've got just over 50% still, and every indication very interested in making sure that they maintain that ownership structure. There's we've got some good institutional shareholders in there, some bigger, smaller. I mean, I think it's hard to kind of keep track of it all the time, but obviously we're on Global X has got some of us, a little bit from SPrott and CQS and some of these guys, and obviously those things change over time. But there's a decent float there for retail as well. But with Nexgen sitting at 50 plus %, we're fairly still fairly tightly held, I would say. As far as cash, we're in a good position. We've got, as of the beginning of the month, we had over $14 million, about 14.4 at the beginning of August. A little bit of money coming back in through options and warrants from time to time. So the program this summer is, it's likely to be just over, $5 million for that program I kind of went through. And yeah, I mean, as far as access to capital, I'd say since I came in here, there's been lots of ability to go out and raise money. And it's a discussion I've had already with the board several times. We're well cashed up. We can certainly pay for this summer's program, and even if we didn't raise money, we'd get through next winter and beyond. So it's just a matter of, do you want to go out when you can and just pad the bank account, and we just kind of took the position, no, we'll wait it out a little bit until we actually need it. We believe in the market. I mean, we're as I said before, we don't know when the market's going to turn, but we think everything in the market is very positive. We're confident in our drill program, so we're up there drilling. So let's wait and see, what kind of results we have and where the market goes. And we feel pretty comfortable that, when we do need to go to the market, it'll be there for us. And and not that they're, the piggy bank or anything, but again, we have Nexgen backing us, and that puts us in a little bit more of a comfortable position that, we do have someone like them watching our back a little bit and gives us a little bit more comfort and ability to be flexible on that capital raising.
Some good points there with having them back there should they need to bridge a gap for you guys in the future if market conditions, aren't good at the time when you need cash. I don't specifically see that happening in the case of ISO, but also that the share price could be higher in the future when you guys do decide to raise. And obviously that makes sense here to put some more results on the table here before that happens.
Yeah.
I want to come back to Larock and Hurricane here for a moment.
Yeah.
Talk about, for maybe some of the audience isn't familiar with what's been drilled out yet, what's left in this as far as, where is it open? Is there more at depth? Maybe just cover some of that here, and then also what you foresee as the plans for Hurricane over, say, the next 18 months, tied in with when do you think is a good time to put out a initial estimate?
Yeah, sure. So like I said, we're there doing some expansion holes and we'll be up there all of September and probably most of October. And certainly to the south, to the south is where we have, even on the outer edges, like if you look at our corporate presentation on our website, you'll see, a diagram of Hurricane, and, there's the red, part in the middle, but you go to the outer edges and even there, you're still coming up with some good hits, few percent uranium over several meters, and that just leads us to go, okay, we don't have the outer edges of it yet, so let's do that work. There's certainly to the south, but also there's parts to the north that look good, and like I said, that conductor runs out to the east like 15 kilometers. Not that will be an extension of Hurricane, but there's certainly some work to be done even on the eastern side of the deposit that we found so far. So our thinking around the maiden resource is really just try to be really practical about it. Like if we go there this summer and we do some drilling for this expansion and it turns out, oh, that wasn't super exciting, but we now have a better sense of where the edges are, then we'll have to seriously look at a decision to call a resource. And if we have some great results and we go, man, like this turned out fantastic, we're still striking some really interesting areas, it's very possible we might make the decision, okay, well, let's do a winter program and again, not to drag it out, but let's make sure we know what we have before we call that initial resource, because as you know better than most, like once you do that, you can certainly add to it, but that initial resource is really important to get the, when you get the message out there and sort of the interest around the company. So we want to do it right. But, I would say, it's not that far down the road where we really need to make a decision to do that. The other interesting piece as far as where does Hurricane go in the future is, if you look again at that diagram on our presentation, the sweet spot of what we found so far comes right up against the border of our project. And right on the other side of that project is the Dawn Lake project that's owned by Cameco and Urano. It's operated by Cameco. There's part of the story is over there as well. And certainly we talked to Cameco and the Urano guys, and I think, there's certainly interest over there. I'd say, when I started 6 months ago talking to Cameco, maybe, there wasn't a ton of interest or plans to go to the other side of it. I don't have any real insight, but I am hearing that there's maybe more interest from their side to do some work on the other side of where Hurricane is. And so I think that would be really great to see. And that's an important piece of the story to see how that deposit actually plays out, because, as you go down the road and you start thinking about, okay, is this something you're going to develop? You really would like to have the full picture. And so I think there's part of the story to be written there as well. So we'll see, sort of what decisions or plans Cameco and Urano might make on the other side of the deposit as well.
It sounds good. I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of the upcoming program here, and then how some of our figures, compare to what you guys finally come out with. It's always good to check back and forth and see if we're close on what might the potential be here. Well, that sounds good. I'm looking forward to seeing more info on that. And, one of the other things, is the shares of the company have performed pretty well, even in a
Mhm.
market where Discovery really isn't being treated too well right now, as it will obviously be treated much better later on in the cycle here. But you're also entering into a potential stage where this project starts to get looked at from an economic study perspective. Maybe
Yeah.
some boredom starts to set in, Tim, as you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you maintain and grow this market cap given the status of the company today?
We certainly, like I said, we don't want to drag things out on hurricane. We need to probably come up and make some decisions on a resource soon. I think some of the interest around that project and that deposit in general will be certainly, like I just said, on the other side. Is there some interest in work being done by Cameco or Urano? I think if you do kind of move to the point where you're looking at development, I think a big part of it, and I think Nexgen's done a good job of this, and Denison, I think, has done a great job of this too. Like, some of the interest is around, finding the right way to mine this thing if you're taking it forward. So, it's at the point where, it's an unconformity hosted deposit. One of the benefits ISO has with Hurricane is it's really quite shallow compared to a lot of deposits in the basin, so only 325 meters. And you've got a lot of interesting things going on in the basin. So you've got Denison with in situ recovery, which, obviously I'm a little biased because I was there, but I'm a big believer in it. I think they're doing a great job, and I think they're going to have success with that. So you got to start looking at, well, how does that apply to something like a Hurricane or Urano? Urano's very excited about their Sabre technology, drilling from surface using jet boring kind of technology, but no underground. And so really, this innovation piece around being able to develop these high grade deposits in northern Saskatchewan, which don't come without their issues, right? All the water, all the inflows, like Cigar and McArthur, are very challenging because you've got all the freezing, and to get underground and stay safe and keep the project open. Now you've got all these other these innovative techniques kind of come to light, and are they something that can be applied to Hurricane? I think that's going to be part of the interesting story going forward, Andrew. That maybe keeps the excitement going on that project. And then the other part will be really, the great team of geologists with Andy and guys like Dave and we've really got a great team of geologists here. How we go about leveraging the great portfolio that the ISO team put together before I got here. They've got all these great properties. They picked them up, at a unique time when, today you wouldn't get this portfolio that we have. And so we will look to go in there and do a lot of exploration, whether it's Geiger, Collins Bay Extension, or some others, and really try to, make ISO into hopefully a multi-asset company, not just a single asset hurricane company. And, you always have this decision, do you go full on development, and I think then you turn a lot of your attention away from exploration, and, that may very well happen down the road. But like I said before, we're kind of at a unique position. We've got these properties, we've got access to capital, and seems like a lot of support from the market and shareholders to go and leverage those properties we put together. So I think that's going to be, a big part of the ISO story over the next months and couple of years.
I think you can advance to all of those goals. I think that, obviously Hurricane can be a cornerstone. And then also, if you guys can manage to have a good stroke of luck here and find some other 2 to 3 deposits under one umbrella across your properties, I think that it starts to show a pipeline. It starts to show what the potential is here. And then, of course, obviously the shares get respected as a result here. So yeah. I think that makes sense to keep the good stuff and have a strategy in place, which it appears you guys have a good piece of this strategy in place here. Notwithstanding that, also something that bigger companies are going to keep an eye on, especially Cameco being in the back door there. And as you said, this whole region is highly competitive. Come back here for just a moment and talk about, you've had some experience here as well, being over at Denison and of course your time at Cameco. But, Tim, you've looked at this and all these companies, developers, you look at a Fission, you look at a Nexgen. What do you see as really a timeline here for advancing projects in this region? Maybe irrespective of the technology. Obviously, ISR is probably going to get a little more love on the permitting front and social front, but talk about realistically, what's your candid view on what you see based on your experience in Canada as far as lead time for permitting and building out a project like this?
It's a great question. I mean, it's interesting because in Saskatchewan, we talk about it all the time. I mean, it's one of the great mining jurisdictions, on the planet. Like we were ranked number one. I think Mining Journal ranked us number one this year. We were ranked number 3 by somebody else. And so you look at that and you go, yeah, I mean, there's tons of support here for the industry. That said, okay, so that's, the province here is very supportive. Federally, it's very supportive, but, you add on the fact that we're uranium and yeah, you get into very, challenging regulatory regimes. You're dealing with the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, who are, great to work with, but there's lots of other, pieces of the puzzle going on there. And the communities we work in, I mean, we work with some really fantastic people up north, and these communities really, they deserve as much, as we can do to include them, to work with them. But even some of those relationships are, they take time, and they take a lot of effort to make sure that everybody's comfortable that you're doing the right things, and the right things, for the communities, and also for shareholders, stakeholders, within the company. So it takes time. Obviously Nexgen and Denison are, in my mind, the leaders here. They're the forefront of this. Denison, it's a bit smaller project. I mean, I think ISR, maybe will, as far as licensing, they'll have a pretty decent time with that. There's no, above ground tailings, all that, but it is a technology that hasn't been used in Saskatchewan before. And so that will also, I think the regulators getting very comfortable with it, but, that could take some time. And Nexgen, they're putting a lot of time and effort into advancing Arrow, but these things take time too. They've got, unique tailings ideas that they're putting forward. It's a big project, that'll require a mill, which, they're working very hard to get all the pieces in place, but those things will take time on the licensing and permitting side as well. So yeah, I mean, they're full on, Denison's full on it, but even from this point forward, I think there's still, if you look at 2025, I think if someone can bring on new production by 2025, I think they're probably doing quite well, very well. But it's probably even a little, maybe a little bit beyond that is that 2025 period that maybe people thought 2 or 3 years ago would be possible. I think, you're probably a year or two out from there, maybe. That's just my gut feel. But they're certainly advancing, and I have no doubts that they will come on, and they'll get the permitting and approvals that they need.
Yeah, 26, 27 timeframe is kind of what I have in mind as more or less the earliest side of things. And look, I mean, 2022 is just in front of us here.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's going to be interesting on that front. And then also who stands out to be the leader on the front end here. I mean, obviously Denison has some advantages with what they've set up, and they have some fallback components as well. And so it'll be interesting to see, who gets some of those initial things sorted out. And obviously, as price continues to go up and interest in the cycle continues to rise, there's going to be more efforts and more money thrown at these problems. That's just inevitable that'll happen. Yeah, interesting to see, and always good to get some other views on what part Athabasca has to play here as far as new development goes compared to the rest of the world, and various parts and pieces that are going to make this up as we go here. We're going to be in completely a different market in 2025, 2026. Tim, back to the old strategy, just kind of in strategy for this company. What do you see? I mean, there's, folks that think that, the exits of some of these majors in the past, that maybe there's not as much appetite for buyouts in the future, and more so for more independent companies to advance and develop and build out and commission a mine. What do you think the in strategy really is? Do you think that in the end, this is a buyout?
Good question. I think there's a few things here. I mean, obviously, Nexgen's, again, they're 50+%, so they're gonna have a big say in what the future of IsoEnergy looks like, right? And how. So it's going to depend a lot on what they want to do, for sure. Like I said before, they're very supportive. They love the company, the project, the portfolio that we have, and it's a great fit for them at the moment. If something happens and all of a sudden they're not, as big a shareholder, then you probably open yourself up to being a bit of a target. I look to, again, the other side of the Hurricane deposit, where it's Cameco and Uranium. One of the other things I guess I didn't mention, I mean, I mentioned one of the strategic benefits, 325 meters, it's shallow, but we're also 40 kilometers from the McLean Lake mill, right? So that's actually huge. And, we set ourselves up as an Eastern Athabasca company. And, part of that is the fact that we are right in the middle of all the infrastructure. We're near roads. We can drive up to the Rockies project. We've got power there. And then when you get that close to an existing mill, you've really got a strategic advantage because there's not that many mills, as you know, in northern Saskatchewan. So that's, are you of interest to others? Orano's right there. I think again it'll depend. If they do some work on the other side of the deposit, what do they find? It wouldn't be unheard of that they would gain more and more interest, I guess, and Cameco. But yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting. Like you said, you get the Rio Tintos and some of these big companies kind of seemingly exiting the market, although they got Rough Rider and all that good stuff. But it'll be interesting as, nuclear gets a more and more positive narrative around climate change. The market goes up. Will you have, maybe other big mining companies or other, big companies that aren't in the sector yet and maybe a few years ago couldn't imagine getting into uranium, starting to kind of perk up their ears and go, yeah, maybe this is something we need to get involved with because it looks like it's really gaining, robust interest that we didn't see in the past. So I think there's interesting times ahead on that front as well.
I think they'll be back, and what will change their opinions will be price and then also the underlying narrative that you touched on earlier. I think that the narrative will grow for nuclear here, and you might even see new entrants come in as these cash flows start to stack up in other parts of the natural resource sector, as you and I both follow, that there will be a return to considerations here. And so much higher prices will change a lot of opinions, and a lot of projects, as you know, will be renewed and dusted off, and efforts will recommence on projects that have been sitting for a while.
Sure.
Well, for potential investors who are on the sidelines listening, market cap of the company stands about 277 million Canadian. What would you say to them at this stage and at current price levels?
When I think of ISO, and it's one reason why I joined back in February, is I think IsoEnergy is really unique as a junior in not just in the Canadian Athabasca, but in the uranium space in general. You look at, there's the companies that are developing the Nexgen, Denison's, Fissions, put it in that category. And then you've got other juniors starting out, like I said before, looking for that transformative find that changes the company. Really, there's no one else like IsoEnergy that's found, really great high grade deposit at decent depths, near an existing mill. No one else has gotten anything even close to that in the last few years. So I think it really positions us well. And we've got support. Like I said, Nexgen is incredibly supportive. It's not only the financial side. I should mention, when I started and we had some changing of personnel, so we slowly got our team back in place. But Nexgen was there going, listen, if you guys need some help, or you need a little bit of work, help on the exploration side, the geological side, hey, we've got these guys here. Have at it. These guys are here to help on the community relations. If you need advice, come talk to our guys. And they're there, for us in a lot of different ways. So that, I think, also positions us very well to be successful. So yeah, I just say, have a look at ISO, look at the property portfolio we have, in particular Hurricane, and just how unique it is over the last number of years as far as, a junior uranium company finding a great new deposit.
What's the best way for investors to reach out to the company, Tim?
Get a hold of me directly. I mean, best way to find it, just go to our website, IsoEnergy.ca. If you go to the corporate presentation on there, I've got my email address. It's just tgabruch@IsoEnergy.ca. My phone number is there. Give me a call anytime. Send me an email. I'll definitely get back to you anytime.
Tim, great to chat. Really good to have you on the show, and I look forward to doing it again sometime.
Andrew, this is really fun. Yeah, I really appreciate you reaching out and giving us this opportunity. Thanks a lot.